It's Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. We are going to talk about Cardano. Get ready. Let's go. Don't you hate how in English the number sixth and the, what do we call them? Do we call them ordinal numbers? Sixth, like XTH, they sound almost the same, like sixth. I think a lot of English speakers, at least in North America, kind of just like lazily pronounce those the same. I'm sure I do that 99% of the time. All right, we've got some topics today. Tomorrow is going to be a bigger, denser, action-packed video, but today we've got a few items to cover. So let's get to it. And still, king of the GitHub commits. Look at this. Look at this. Cardano kicking so much ass. Do we ever get tired of kicking everybody's ass in GitHub commits? It's like, I'm afraid the Cardano foot is going to get sore. Like, we're going to be breaking tendons off in our ankle from kicking so much ass all the damn time on the GitHub commits. We're just so damn busy. Look at this. Sentiment.net, I assume you're the one putting out this data based on this infographic. Thank you for putting this out and showing everybody how sore our damn feet must be. We're just constantly kicking their asses. What is that in second place? Is that Kusama? KSM? I assume that's Kusama, which is like a dot related. Then we got dot, Ethereum. What is that? Gnosis, Solana, Atom, IOTA. Man, just kicking all their damn asses. Good job, IOHK and Emergo. I love to see this. No matter how many times I see it, I don't get tired of it. I can look at this every day and just think about how much we're kicking their asses and rubbing my hands together. I love it. Thank you, IOHK and Emergo. Item number 2. All right, this is the Cardano with Paul YouTube channel. This is a great YouTube channel, by the way. I highly recommend watching this if you want the latest on crypto news. Pretty good stuff. I won't say that I've seen every single one of his videos, but the ones I have seen, pretty good videos. Importantly for us today, Cardano with Paul did a great interview with Dewayne Cameron there on the left, the founder of Liqwid. It sounds like Liqwid is currently having a team of Haskell developers build out their product in Plutus for a target launch around the same time as Alonzo. This is great news since earlier in its history, it looked like Liqwid would initially build in Solidity and use the KEVM bridge. That was my take on it, at least. Maybe other people knew better, but that was my perception of what was going to happen. And we're talking, earlier on when we first started hearing about Liqwid. But this video is actually the first that I learned of what I'm about to talk about. And that is that it looks like they're going to make their product native to Plutus out of the gate. And this to me is a great move. Dewayne also had some really good info about working with IOHK and how a team of seasoned Haskell developers could probably walk in and build maybe anything in Plutus over a not too long timeline. I think he was throwing around numbers like timelines in the small single digit number of months, like 3-4 months. I have no idea how true that is, but sounds good to me. Sounds awesome. I think it's really cool they're actually building in Plutus. Earlier, I think, even within the last week, I was kind of worrying that Liqwid was going to come out and it was going to be a Solidity product that sort of crosses the KEVM bridge, and it would just be one among many sort of Solidity, liquidity pool DeFi products, with all the rest also coming over from Solidity into Cardano. I'm really glad to hear that Liqwid will be native to Plutus, which is native to Cardano, and then we'll have a real DEX that is sort of truly something of our community's own making, or at least our ecosystem's own making. It's obviously Liquid's product, but Super stoked about that. There's also a really good discussion of how EUTXO, extended unspent transaction outputs, will give the users of Liqwid an advantage in predictability of transaction costs over users of account balance based competitors, for example, Ethereum. So, this is a really interesting and I think highly overlooked aspect in any analysis of Cardano versus Ethereum or their smart contract platforms. So, one of the big problems I always hear people complain about with Ethereum based DeFi, which is basically all the DeFi right now, we could name exceptions, but most of the DeFi is going on in Ethereum. This big problem is that you can't predict how much gas fees are going to be. And if you're trying to arbitrage between, a couple different pools, maybe on a couple different platforms, you have no idea how much you're going to end up paying until it's all said and done. And I know I know even back in I don't know, like 2018, there were products like I think the one I used to use was called Gas Station, maybe in 2017, 2018, thereabouts. But there are products that can help you estimate what gas fees are going to be. But let's face it, they're highly, highly unfucking predictable. We don't really know how much you're going to pay when you're doing something on Ethereum. And in the unspent transaction output ledger-based world, we do. We do know. We can predict pretty reliably how much things are going to cost. And I think this is going to be a huge advantage for a product like Liqwid. And I was super glad to hear that Liqwid was already thinking about it. And the way Dewayne explained this was actually a really good explanation of why that's going to be such a big advantage for them. So really good interview. If you have any interest in DeFi or any interest in Liqwid, I strongly suggest this interview. Dewayne Cameron seems to be very transparent and gives a very good account of kind of, what it's like to be on the inside of maybe we can say like the biggest homegrown product in Cardano right now. They're like a 2 or 3 time Catalyst winner between. I think they had a project in Catalyst 2 and then in Catalyst 3. I think they won both a DApp Challenge grant and a Developer Ecosystem grant. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's the case. But we've kind of like watched them go from 0 to, or I think we're in the process of watching them go from 0 to 1 here. So super cool to see. Super cool to see. Okay, I think we can contrast that last interview with Dewayne Cameron of Liqwid pretty sharply with this interview with Mark Berger, who is the president of Occam Association. So this interview happened on Rick McCracken's new podcast. Rick, you will all remember, was 50% of the Cardano Effect podcast with Philippe. That was the first big Cardano podcast and YouTube channel. Much love to those guys for creating that. That was well-timed and a valuable resource in the ecosystem, I think. So this is Rick's new YouTube channel. The first episode was Charles, I believe. Really good episode. And this one is Mark Berger, president of Occam Association. So this was really interesting. These guys, we covered Occam.fi and the Occam Association, I think yesterday or the day before, pretty recently. And we didn't have a lot of information about them. We didn't really know who they were, what they were up to. We knew there was some kind of a notion of a launch pad and maybe a DEX. But beyond that, we didn't know too much. There were just a few news releases. So this is great timing for this. So it turns out Occam is launching a DEX and a launchpad. And the launchpad is basically a way for project builders to access liquidity through crowdfunding. So immediately right now, you're probably having visions of 2017 ICO madness flash before your eyes. And you might think that's great for the ecosystem. You might think it's bad, but it's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing that garners attention in crypto, even right now. So they're attacking that use case, the launchpad for new projects. Basically, like project builders would apply to Occam. Occam's due diligence team would do a due diligence process, determine whether they want the project in their launchpad. Then it would go in the launchpad, and they would basically do crowdfunding on the Occam platform. There's also a DEX, sort of traditional liquidity pools. I guess I shouldn't say that. We don't know enough to say if they're traditional liquidity pools, but liquidity pools, of the sort roughly that we're all used to. This was it was very different from the Liqwid interview we just discussed. In that, in the Liqwid interview, Dewayne is basically telling us like, yeah, we tried to build on Solidity, and then we realized we should really get some Haskell developers and build in Plutus, and here's how we went about that, and here's how we're working with IOHK. In this interview, it's very different. Mark Berger is holding things much closer to the vest, which might not be a bad thing. Could be either thing. Could be good or bad. We don't know, but he's a little bit less transparent. He might have good reason for that. It could be he has investors, or he has, some kind of agreements in place, and he can't disclose anything until a certain date or upon certain things happening. We don't know, but much less transparency into what Occam is up to exactly versus Liqwid. For instance, like Rick asked some questions kind of, as far as like, what are they building? Are they building in Solidity and then using the KVM bridge to come over to Cardano? Or are they building in Plutus? And the answer was they're kind of like launching, if I got it right, maybe I didn't, but it sounds like they're launching in Solidity on Ethereum. And then as soon as smart contracts are ready on the Cardano side, they sort of looked at Marlowe and Plutus and Glow, and on the Cardano side, they want to launch as soon as smart contracts are ready in Plutus. They want to launch in Plutus, but we didn't hear the same kind of language we heard in the Dewayne Cameron interview. Dewayne Cameron told us all about how he sort of like, went about acquiring Haskell developers, and he's talking a lot of Haskellers, and Mark Berger is just sort of like, we'll be among the first to launch, in Plutus as soon as smart contracts are ready on Cardano. And it could be they will be. I would kind of expect Occam to be telling us like, hey, we have, 6 Haskell developers, or we're hiring up a Haskell team right now. Berger was unable to provide any of those kind of details, and it could be he's under some kind of NDA or something, or some kind of agreement not to release information until a certain date, or maybe they just think it's in their strategic best interest not to talk too much about that for fear that their developers get poached. We don't know, but it's a very different level of detail from what we heard from Dewayne of Liqwid. I think I'm gonna have to withhold judgment until we get some more detail on exactly how much Occam is really going to launch on the Plutus side, or the other scenario where they really just have Solidity developers and they're really just a Solidity product, and we may never see a Plutus version. I hate to keep going back to the Plutus versus Solidity thing, but to me, that's a good earmark of how much a given project is focused on Cardano. Obviously, in my opinion, it's better if they're very focused on Cardano versus focused very little on Cardano. So I kind of use it as an earmark of how focused a product is on Cardano, whether rightly or wrongly. One thing I can say about Occam, though, they have this little PDF on their website, and they definitely have put a lot of thought into DeFi on Cardano. They're kind of like laying out the size of DeFi on other blockchains and sort of implying how big it could be on Cardano, that kind of stuff. It sort of looks more like this. I believe this section of the website is called Overview. It's almost more like a pitch deck. It's like trying to convince me how big DeFi could be on Cardano. I'm already convinced, so I'm probably the wrong audience for this. It does look like they put quite a bit of thinking into this. They're going to have their own token. Here's some tokenomics stuff on their token. I do get a little afraid though. I do get a little afraid when I know more about the tokenomics of a project than I do about how they're building what they purport to build. That always kind of scares me. But it could just be a thing related to the culture of this organization. Maybe they just like to keep things close to the vest until they're ready to launch. Maybe they're just a little bit more private in that regard. That could be. I'm gonna withhold judgment on these guys until I see more information. It could be that this turns out to be a gigantic, awesome project, and we're all super awesome. It's in our ecosystem, or it could be something else. I don't think I can quite tell at this point. But I hope it turns out to be a great product, and that they really are going to launch in Plutus, around the time of Alonzo. That'd be fantastic. But at this point, I feel like I don't really have. I mean, I've got this PDF on their website, but I don't think it. It talks a lot about market caps and things like that, but it doesn't tell me like, hey, here are the 7 guys. Here are the 7 well-tenured Haskell developers who are writing the smart contracts in Plutus. I have a sneaking suspicion it'd probably be easier for them to show me the credentials of their Solidity developers than their Haskell developers. But I could be totally wrong. Maybe they got the best damn Haskell developers in the game, and they're just not talking about it. So it's one of those deals where we're going to have to withhold judgment and see what this is really all about. That is it for our items today. But tomorrow we're going to have quite a big, sweet and savory, delicious Cardano rumor rundown. We're going to have a lot of little tidbits to cover. We're going to cover everything from Charles' recent video about the Cardano roadmap going forward. He covers quite a few different things, and we're going to break it all down and go through everything. There's a lot of nomenclature, and I think we might as well just kind of break everything down. We're gonna go through it quickly though, so it won't be boring. So that's gonna be kind of a big piece just to get through all of that stuff. So tomorrow might even end up being a 2-parter. We might have to cover it over 2 days, but we're just gonna bust through everything so everybody can get caught up on exactly where Cardano is going from here in terms of the roadmap. And with that, I will see you tomorrow.